Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the United Truth. We are live and we are discussing today. Want to discuss first of all, Wayne Rooney has just taken over as Derby interim boss, and it kind of got me thinking about Manchester United and ex-players becoming managers, and delving into a little bit as to why these guys don't make great managers, but why I actually have a good feeling about Wayne Rooney. So it just got me thinking, Sir Alex Ferguson, greatest manager in history, in my opinion. But for some reason, anyone who's played under him, there's been nobody that's come out as being particularly great. So there's a long list. You can go from Brian Robson, Steve Bruce doing okay, Mark Hughes did okay, Paul Ince not too good. There's a long list, so I could go through so many. And Gary Neville, Phil Neville, and Ryan Giggs is just starting out now. Paul Scholes lasted a game at Oldham. And the list goes on. And you think to yourself, if you play under the greatest manager of all time, or one of the greatest managers of all time, how can some of these guys not be great? How can they not have learned and become like great managers in their own right? And this is why I want to go into Rooney a little bit later, where I can actually say why I think that there might be a positive when it comes to Wayne Rooney. But the way that I break it down and the way that I look at things is, I think of, say, Floyd Mayweather. Think of Sir Alex Ferguson like this. Think of Sir Alex Ferguson as being the greatest and very unique in what he does. And think of that when it comes to, say, somebody like Floyd Mayweather, greatest boxer I've probably ever seen, never lost a fight, and so on and so forth. So the way that I see it is, just because Floyd Mayweather is the greatest boxer of all time does not mean that he's going to become the greatest trainer of all time. And it's not even, because at the end of the day, a footballer moves from football to management. So it's not the same, but it's the advice that is given. So Floyd Mayweather might be giving out advice that works for him, but does it actually work for that particular boxer? So if you do know your boxing, I use this as a sort of an idea. So if you think of Adrian Broner, he tried to do the shoulder roll, tried to be like Floyd Mayweather. Listened to his advice, was hanging around with Floyd Mayweather and everything like that. Tried to box the same way, and then Maidana just took him out. Do you know what I mean? So it can only take you so far. So I look at these managers, and I can't believe I missed out the manager that that won out of the club at the moment. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is another one where someone can be so great like Sir Alex Ferguson was, but his wisdom, because he was so unique, is not going to work for any of these players. So when you think of, his thing about his mantra about always bringing through youth, and it's a Manchester United tradition, yes, absolutely granted. It's right. We've always had somebody from the youth academy on the bench at least on match days. But if you go back to our 92, 93, 93, 94, there was literally just Giggs who was there. There might be somebody else, maybe Ferguson's son, but there was literally just Giggs. So he had to put himself into a position in the first place for him to introduce slowly the class of 92. But what happens then is that things become so over the top, over exaggerated, that everybody then believes that you have to do the same thing. So then you've got people like Ole, who will give someone like Brandon Williams pretty much most of the season. You'll give him pretty much most of the season, last season, because he thinks he's doing the right thing. Now, any man and his dog could see that physically, even though he's got some ability, physically he wasn't up to the task. Whereas you might see his goal against Sheffield United, but you'll see him get bullied by somebody like Wolfsart, just get bullied literally because he wasn't ready. But again, of a great manager's philosophy for himself, his disciples decide to follow, and it's like the analogy what I'm saying when it comes to Adrian Broner and Floyd Mayweather. Be the best you, but it's very difficult to be the best you when the best you has only seen one style. So if for a lot of these players, they played only under Sir Alex Ferguson. So if you've only played under Sir Alex Ferguson, you'd only played under his style of greatness. His style of greatness, we've got to remember, is people used to say that the hairs on their arms used to stand up when he used to give some of his speeches. And this isn't taking away his tactics, because his tactics were ridiculously good as well. But we know that he was an all-out. He was a very much an attacking manager until later on, until he realised, hold on, I'm not winning the Champions League. I keep getting knocked out the same sort of way. He brought in Carlos Queiroz, and he has to change those things. So these are sort of important things to look at. So for someone like Sir Alex Ferguson, he's got his own way, but literally his management and his people management is some of the greatest. So it's one of the greatest stories in football. The way that he was able to get the best out of certain players, the way that he was able to get Ronaldo to certain levels. This is unbelievable. He played Ronaldo on as a right winger and still got the best out of him. That's not his position. We played him on the right wing, inspired him to, shoot from 40 yards. But going back to why this doesn't work for some of these managers now is literally there's only one Sir Alex Ferguson. There's no point trying to be that. And I hear certain statements from some of these managers, and they'll say the same sort of stuff that Sir Alex Ferguson said. And I'm like, this is the worst thing that you can possibly do. You only want to pick up one or two things from him. You don't want to pick up everything, because football's changing. Football's becoming very systemic. So yes, there was system football before, but I think I was listening to Jurgen Klopp, and he was talking about, I think it was Arrigo Sacchi he was talking about, and he was saying the way that he learned to manage was literally, it's not about individuals going against the other individuals. So we used to hear like Keane against Vieira and stuff like that. It's literally about a system. It's about literally shuffling across, making sure that you defend in a pack, and so on and so forth. And that's why, like later on in Sir Alex's career, we started to struggle. You saw us against Bilbao. We couldn't deal with a Bielsa team the way that they were playing, and the players didn't know what hit them. And this is the thing. So football's ever evolving. So if, for instance, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer thinks that following, and you hear it still, and following a lot of Sir Alex Ferguson's way is going to work for him, is sadly mistaken. For that to happen, you have to have your team full of players like Bruno Fernandes and someone like Jack Grealish, where it's literally be inspired by what I say, by how I articulate about, Sir Alex Ferguson. One of his famous ones is literally saying that these fans have come, literally they pay all the hard-earned money to now watch you play. Show them what you've got. You need players who literally, it doesn't really matter too much about a system, because they're going to do what they're going to do if you're going to play like that. But if you're going to join the modern way of football, it's literally a different style to what you could get away with in Sir Alex Ferguson's time. There's a time, there's people's time, and there's a time when someone's so great that that's their era, and then the eras move on. It's not about which one was better, which one's not, but the era moves on. And that's why I've spoken about some of the old managers, why some of the old United players haven't become great managers. And it's because they have followed a mantra from a manager who was special on its own, and only he can deliver the speeches that he gives. Only he can bring in coaching staff when he wasn't overly arrogant enough to actually assess the certain tactics that he might need, and he wasn't afraid to bring anybody in. What you find now is you'll hear, say, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you'll hear it from, say, Steve Bruce, you used to hear it from Brian Robson. They'll always hark back to Sir Alex Ferguson quotes, and it's not going to work for him. It's not going to work for him. and this literally is the problem. Literally is the problem. And that's why I wanted to get into Wayne Rooney. So Wayne Rooney's at Derby now. He's interim boss. But for Wayne Rooney, and before going to Wayne Rooney, let me bring in someone like Steven Gerrard. So, for instance, with someone like Steven Gerrard, great player, but you've got to think he's played under different managers. So there's a chance that he's going to become a greater manager than somebody like Brian Robson and a Paul Ince. You know, these sort of players are similar, you know, driving teams forward and everything like that. But Steven Gerrard, you see what he's doing at Rangers at the moment. You see that he's a proper football man, and so on and so forth. So if he's played under Benitez, and that's about organisation, defensive organisation, then he played under Brendan Rodgers, and you see where Brendan Rodgers is now with Leicester, top of the Premier League. He's played under Gerard Houllier, for instance. Do you know what I mean? He would have been inspired by having Kenny Dalglish. So this type of experience, he's not stuck on one person's philosophy throughout his managerial career. And you could say the same for someone like Frank Lampard as well. Have a little bit of a think about it. It's not rocket science. Gary Neville went to Valencia, was spouting some of the Sir Alex Ferguson stuff there as well. You know, and it's like this. It's like Solskjaer's thinking like long ahead because he's still thinking about Sir Alex Ferguson. It took him 4 or 5 years. Blah 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 blah. And Sir Alex Ferguson said this, and Sir Alex Ferguson said that. And he said it's going to take a while, and you need to introduce this, you need to introduce that. Football's different. If it all started again for Sir Alex Ferguson, in his head, he's a ruthless guy. So he would have been looking to do some serious damage straight away. Do you know what I mean? Football has completely changed. And it's the same with Lampard. Lampard's come to Chelsea, and yes, he's had Jose Mourinho, but he's had Carlo Ancelotti as well. And he's had, what's his name? Got his name now. World Cup winner, Scolari, and managers like that. So you've got to think Frank Lampard's got so many different weapons that he can kind of call upon, as well as himself, where it's not literally, he's not reading from the Jose Mourinho rule book, he's not reading from the Ancelotti rule book, he's taking a little bit from everybody. And this is where I wanted to get onto Wayne Rooney. So Wayne Rooney spoke about the tactics of LVG, and he says tactically, LVG is the greatest manager that he's actually played under. He didn't say he was the greatest manager, he said tactically. And he's also criticised Sir Alex Ferguson in the 2011 Champions League final as well, when we went 4-4-2 and we put, I think it was Carrick and Anderson against Xavi, Iniesta and Busquets. So it makes you laugh even thinking about it. And he questioned that. So there's something there from Wayne Rooney where there's a little bit of defiance. There was when he wanted to leave to go to Man City. There's a defiant player in there where you can tell that he's a football man, so he's not going to be in the media. You could see that with Gerrard, and you could see that with Lampard as well. And for me, I think that there is light at the end of the tunnel for him. There potentially might be with Ryan Giggs, because he spent time with LVG. He saw a different way to organise his teams. In fact, he saw a different way to set his teams up, and kind of he would take certain things from LVG, but not everything, because he obviously didn't make all the players happy. He will take things from Sir Alex Ferguson, where he will know that there's a lot more to it than literally being a passion merchant and trying to copy what Sir Alex Ferguson does. And that's unfortunately what we've got with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So if you ask me now, which manager would I want now, if we had this time again when Jose left, just for the fact I know that he's got his own opinion, and it doesn't really matter. He's not going to live off the past. I would have gone for, if it was Wayne Rooney today or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I would have gone for Wayne Rooney. I think when there's so much criticism of the board, I don't think Wayne Rooney would have put up with it. You got to think to yourself, and this is no disrespect to Ole, and it keeps harking back to Ole. I want to talk about obviously why the managers aren't great, but it does always hark back. Well, I always think to myself, if you was happy to be a substitute for Manchester United for so many years, yes, you become a legend of it, then it kind of says something about your mentality. So it kind of seems like he's happy with everything that's going on now. Whereas somebody like Wayne Rooney, where I think he's going to be a success, is he wouldn't have accepted this summer. He wouldn't have accepted the last summer. So he would have taken a little bit of the LVG where you don't give a shit. He would have taken which other manager, a little bit of Sam Allardyce. Sam Allardyce is very thorough with, he likes to do like certain modern stuff, not with the way they play football, but certain technology he likes to use. And he would have taken a lot from the inspiration from Sir Alex Ferguson, a lot of his team talks, and the way that he had a high emphasis on attack. So it's all about taking little bits from each manager. So that's why I think Wayne Rooney will be a success, and that's why people like, unfortunately, Paul Scholes, favourite player, whatever, Gary Neville, they'll always fall on the wayside. They'll always fall on the wayside, and that's why Gary Neville's in the studio. He went to Valencia, and you won't see him back in management again, because they have this ideology. That's why Gary Neville's only able to talk in a certain way when he's talking about managers. He's always talking about this infinite amount of time, and 2 years away this and 2 years away that. He gets to 2 years and it's like, give him a few more years. We haven't done this and we haven't done that, and we haven't backed him when it comes to Ole and stuff like that. Unfortunately, they was brought up on a idealism, like Sir Alex Ferguson said just as he retired, when he says, get behind the manager, basically. So it takes a lot for someone like Gary Neville to understand that, David Moyes was struggling, he needed to be sacked. It took him too long for him to actually catch on to the fact that he's lost the changing rooms, because he wouldn't allow it to happen because he was a disciple of Sir Alex Ferguson. So I'm starting to believe that this last generation, so you could have people that retired, that was playing just for the last couple of years of Sir Alex Ferguson's reign, and then had LVG and then moved on. So maybe an Ashley Young or someone like that might then become great managers. So they've had a great manager in Sir Alex Ferguson. They can take bits from him. They can take bits from other people. I think that's really important. And if we just look at some of the players at Manchester United, we can see some of the players from the 90s and stuff. We can see potentially why they might have failed. So I want to know what you guys think. It's something I was thinking about when Wayne Rooney got the job, and I was like, for me, this, out of all the ex-United players, this is the one where I think it's really promising. I think that there's a big chance, and I just think it is down to the fact that he's got a flexible personality, he's got a robust personality, and I just think he's learned from more than one manager. It's not enough to say, well, some of these players, it wasn't just Sir Alex Ferguson, they played under Sven-Goran Eriksson, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. Obviously, England duty compared to just being at Manchester United and having one manager all that way, it's completely different. And again, it's like players like John Terry. I can see that he's going to become a great manager, potentially. It doesn't always work, but it's like a little bit of an elephant in the room, isn't it? Like when you think of, you've played under the great Sir Alex Ferguson, everyone thought Captain Marvel. There's no doubt that Brian Robson was going to become a great manager to everybody. I remember the time and everyone was like, Brian Robson's going to become a great manager. And it just never worked out. It never worked out. The mentality, Steve Bruce, it just never worked out. He was captain of Manchester United. It just never worked out. Never worked out. That was an inspired time. It was an inspired time for Manchester United, but football has moved on and it's changed. So you really do need to do your homework on the systems that a lot of these teams are playing, the way that they're playing, the way that they press and stuff like that. It's not enough for us to say, just like Sir Alex Ferguson, we'll bring through youth and we'll inspire them by saying, just, Jane, who works at the Chippies, come to watch you with all the kids, show them what you've got. That in today's football is not enough, because, like I said earlier, unless you got a Grealish and you got some of these guys who don't need coaching, a lot of these players need like a hell of a lot of coaching. They're a little bit robotic in these days. Do you know what I mean? Because there is less space. So it's a little bit robotic. They're not allowed, they're not left one-on-one. It's normally around like 2 or 3 players pressing them. So now it's kind of like the need telling what to do. So that's the next part of the evolution of the football manager. So I want to know what you guys think. I want you guys to smash a like and let me know what you guys think about Wayne Rooney. Do you think he's going to be a great manager, or do you think he's going to fall on the wayside, just like some of these old Manchester United legends who played under Sir Alex Ferguson for so many years? So yeah, smash a like, guys, and subscribe. And I'm on to the next one. Catch you guys later. See you later.